Hi, everyone. Welcome to Guildhall. I'm Andrea Grover. I'm the executive director here. Thank you. This is the first program of its kind. It's called the Innovators Talk Show. And we created this for for the business community, but especially for our community pillars, which is a membership here. It's a $1,000 membership for local businesses. And it shows that you're supporting arts and culture in your community, and you realize that there's this symbiotic relationship between the health of the arts in a community and the health of the economy. So we're really grateful to everyone who's a community pillar, and we hope that you'll consider joining. In addition to supporting Guildhall, you also get a lot of recognition, including a full-page ad where you're listed in the East Hampton Star, and that'll be in December. As well as acknowledgement on site and in our materials, and then invitations to networking and program events like this. So I am thrilled because we started right at the top with the innovators and asked Malcolm Carfrae to join us tonight. Malcolm is the founder and principal of Carfrae Consulting, which is a global communications consultancy that has expertise in luxury brands, and they do communications, marketing, public relations, events, VIP, et cetera. In addition to working globally, he works locally with 2 brands that we'll talk about very shortly. He's also a part-time resident of Amagansett. So welcome, Malcolm.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so we decided taking a page from Vanity Fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are those questions called?
It's called the Proust Questionnaire.
Are people familiar with these, like lightning round questions? Yes. Okay, so we're going to start with these, and they'll be the same for every episode of The Innovators. So a song you could listen to over and over again.
So I probably should say The Smiths and Morrissey, because that was his songs were the anthems of my youth. But if I'm going to be completely honest, it is Taylor Swift right now, because my husband John plays it 100 times per day, and yeah, so that's just what's in my head.
And it's so funny because the song that you were talking about was playing when you came in.
Yeah, it was the first song they played, so I was like, okay, that's a sign. I do need to say it, even though I'm embarrassed.
3 books you're reading or recently read.
So 3 books that I have been reading almost simultaneously are all autobiographies of men. One is Keith McNally's, one is Graydon Carter's, and one is Barry Diller's. And I don't know if any of you have read them. I personally love the McNally one the most. It's so just naughty and just full of like craziness of everything he went through. I thought the other 2 were a little bit, I wanted to hear more gossip. Mm-hmm. I didn't get it.
All right, more gossip.
Yeah.
Okay, if your life were a novel, what would the title be?
So someone very important in my realm of communications once said to me that the role of a good publicist is to guide the spotlight, not to be in the spotlight. So they probably wouldn't approve of me being in the spotlight right now, actually. But so I would say probably the spotlight garter, or garter of the spotlight.
Okay, great. The fastest decision you've ever made?
100%. When John and I decided to buy our house in Amagansett, it was a huge leap for us and a huge risk for us. But we just stood there looking at it and thought we need to act immediately, and we got it. So.
And John is here.
Yep.
There he is. Hello, John. Okay, a movie or TV character closest to your personality?
This is hard for me to say, for me to like really think of someone, although if it was up to John, he would say Samantha Jones from Sex and the City, because, notorious New York City fashion publicist, well, yeah, that's my life. Without the kind of horniness, let's say.
To John's disappointment. Okay, so we're going to start out. We have a couple of slides, and conversation is going to be about 30 minutes total, and then we're opening it up for questions from the audience. So first question is, how did you get into PR?
Okay, so this is a picture of me when I was very young. So
awful looking man.
And if from this angle it's really scary, so I'm not going to look at it. So I was living in London. I had a master's degree in history. I was highly educated and not really equipped to work anywhere because studying history does not qualify you to, to work anywhere apart from being a historian. So I was working in retail. My last job was working as the manager of Ralph Lauren Home in Harvey Nichols, which at that time was the hottest department store in the world. So we had Ab Fab, exactly. So it was a lot of fun, but I was not happy. I really wanted to have a career in something that I was really using my brain, not just, helping customers. And one of my friends who worked in PR said, listen, what you need to do is write to 15 PR agency owners, write an amazing letter selling yourself, send your resume, offer to work for free. I'm like, for free? Like, how do I live? And he said, well, you're going to have to work nights and weekends, and eventually they'll offer you a job, and it'll be great. So I wrote 15 letters. I typed 15 letters. I put on a beautiful heavy stock blue paper, and I sent them off because there was no email in those days. And I had 2 responses, one saying, thank you, but no thank you, and we'll keep your resume on file. And the second person was Anna Morel, who said, come see me tomorrow. So I went to see her, and we talked for a long time, and we really bonded. And she said, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm not going to pay you, but I will pay for your lunch and for your subway fare.
It's something?
Yeah, it was something. And so for about 4 months, I worked 7 days a week. So I worked 2 days in the store and 4 days for her. And after about, I think, 4 months, she said to me, I want you to work 5 days a week. And I said, well, then I can't afford to. So she said, okay, I'll give you a salary and let's get going. So that was my story.
And the history degree, so you started out studying in Sydney, right?
Yes.
And then you ended up at UC Berkeley?
Correct, in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that degree is helping you now?
I always say that like a liberal arts degree is the best general education anyone can ever have in terms of just being a very knowledgeable, well-rounded person. Doesn't really set you up for a specific job, so you have to then figure it out for yourself. Mm-hmm. I think you need to really, push a little bit harder than you would if you're doing a degree where you're trained very specifically for something.
Right. So from that position, you ended up with Calvin Klein. So can you talk a little bit about how you essentially landed a job after a 15-minute interview with Calvin?
Well, it's an interesting story. I actually was approached by a headhunter, and she actually wanted me to work for Yves Saint Laurent in London as the kind of head of UK PR, and because I was living there at the time. And I went for about 7 job interviews. My last was with Tom Ford, who was the head of YSL and Gucci at that point. He was the creative director. And they decided they didn't want me after 6 months and 7 interviews. But she called me, the headhunter, and said, listen, I really think I can get you a job. Just bear with me. I'll come back to you, but I think you're great, and I'm going to try and figure out another job for you. So a few months later, she called me and said, how do you feel about moving to New York? And actually, I did not want to move to New York, to be honest, at that point. But I also wanted to hear what it was. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. What is it? And she said, it's Calvin Klein. It's to be the VP of Public Relations at Calvin Klein. And I thought, wow, well, that's a stretch for me, living in London and, being Australian and knowing a lot of British press, but not necessarily anything about the way America works. But they said they flew me to Paris to meet with who would then be my boss in an airport lounge. That was, crazy. It was insane that she was there and that was the only time she could meet me. So it was, it was a little longer. It was maybe 30, 45 minutes. I met with her in this lounge, and clearly she liked me because then they called me straight back and said, you need to come to New York to meet Calvin. So they flew me business. They said, stay wherever you want to stay. If you want to come for the weekend, we'll pay for it. I was like, what is this? This is like insane. Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I was in the office, and they walked me in to meet Mr. Klein. And it was the shortest interview I've ever had. He asked me the most incredible questions, really insightful, very empathetic. And clearly he had decided that everything was fine, he didn't need more time. But in my crazy little head, I thought that I hadn't got the job. So I was backpedaling and saying to him, "Oh, I'm such a huge fan of yours, and my mother once gave me a shirt that was a Calvin Klein, and I wore Obsession in the '80s." I was just going on, and he was like, "Okay," looking at his watch, like, "Okay, you need to leave." They led me to like a little room with no windows, and and I thought that they were going to tell me that I needed to pay all the money back for the airfare. I was like, I had like disappointed everyone, and. Then the woman walked back in again, and she put a folder in front of me and said, "Look at this." And I opened it up, and it was a job offer. And
That
it was,
fast.
and it was like, I think 3 to 4 times what my salary was in England at the PR agency. And she said, "Here's a pen. You can either sign it now, or you can look at it on the plane and then send it back to us by fax tomorrow morning." And actually, that's probably the quickest decision I ever made, because I actually just thought, what choice do I have? How can I ever turn this back? Even though I have no intention of moving to New York and my life will change forever, I need to follow up on this. So I signed.
And what year was that?
So I started in January 2003.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about some of the innovations that happened during
I
that
need
time
to
period?
be better about switching this.
Who are these people?
Well, it's funny because week one, it was really at that time when Calvin was selling the company to PVH. But for the first 6 months I was there, I was really with him all the time. And I remember the very first week I was there, both he and Anna were on it at FIT, and I was with Calvin, but she was by herself. So we were backstage, the three of us, for about 45 minutes, just chatting about weekend plans and what's going on. I'm like, what is going on? It was from coming, being in London to moving to New York and suddenly being with them was surreal. But it was a really wild time to be there. I mean, he of course exited, and they decided to, rather than replace him, to have a menswear designer, a women's wear designer, a homeware designer, an accessories designer, and my job was to really make them all recognizable and famous and get a lot of press on them, without, of course, the man who created the brand and whose name was on the door being day-to-day present,
Right.
which was like a big challenge. But I was there for 11 years. And from Academy Awards to the Cannes Film Festival, which this picture was actually taken at the Cannes Film Festival. She was so kind to smile because it was literally torrential rain, and I was trying to kind of get her to take photographs with a whole phalanx of photographers from around the world, and she was like really, really kind. But we did, after I had been at Calvin Klein for I think 3 years, head of running the US PR team, they gave me the global job. So my boss left, and they put me in charge of all of global communications. So for 8 years, I did that job, and it was probably the best job of my life, of my career, apart from working for myself, because I had a wonderful boss. His name is Tom Murray. He was the CEO, and he just let me do my thing. He trusted me. He said, "Do what you think is right. I trust you. I'll support you. I'll back you." And I kind of learned a lot on the job, but by meeting the right people and getting a lot of great advice. But he's such an important mentor to me.
And there were some big kind of innovations happening at the time that you were at Calvin Klein, like social media, for instance.
Yeah. So this happened. Well, in 2012, Instagram just really, really took off. It had been, it was invented in 2010, but by 2012, it had become kind of quite massive. I think 100 million people used it in 2012, and by 2013, it had doubled to 200 million. Now, of course, it's 3 billion, but back in those days...
Is that right? 3 billion users on Instagram?
That's what Google told me, yeah. So if you can trust it. But I quickly saw that traditional media was obviously still relevant, still incredibly important, but that social media was really the wild frontier, the Wild West, and we all, needed to embrace it really quickly. So basically, I had an idea with my team to create a campaign called #MyCalvins, because everything was about hashtags.
Which is what we're looking at right now.
Exactly what you're looking at. And the idea was that we would send underwear to a lot of different celebrities and influencers. Actually, we had 100 influencers from 25 different countries who we engaged with. sent underwear, had different terms. Some of them were paid, some of them were not paid. And then we launched in February 2014 this campaign where, as a brand, we let all of these people post first before we posted. It was kind of revolutionary. And it was a way of using Instagram quite cleverly in a way before brands really jumped on it. And it ended up generating a huge amount of interest and in sales in Calvin Klein underwear.
And the user-generated content part of this initiative was really important as well.
Yeah, so we kind of had a call to action, like, post yourself in your Calvins. That the whole idea was that, someone like Fergie or who else was it? Kendall Jenner and and Trey Songz and Miranda Kerr, and there were so many people who we engaged with. But we wanted like the regular consumers, the American consumers and global consumers, to have fun with it as well. So we encouraged them to post selfies. By the way, the word selfie only came into the English language in that exact same year. So Instagram was taking off, and the word selfie was invented at that time. Mm-hmm. So we encouraged people to take their selfies and post them using the hashtag, and then they were all aggregated on a hub on the Calvin Klein website, so people could actually look at themselves. And it was, you can imagine that for a high schooler, they're all competing with each other. It was like a real vanity exercise, but it worked incredibly well.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about some of the repeat themes in your career is that the participants are both the, everyday user-generated, but then you also have celebrities and influencers and everyone in between. So this particular campaign allowed for that because the hashtag connected all the content.
It was really democratic. And actually, if you put into your phone now and search for hashtag MyCalvins, I think there's 900,000 people have used that hashtag since then.
Anyone here? Yes. Oh my goodness.
Julia has.
That's pretty good. So from Calvin Klein, you went to Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
So tell us about your time with Ralph Lauren and what you learned from working with him.
So it was interesting. I after 11 years at Calvin Klein, my boss retired, the man who I was just talking about, and I didn't really fancy a regime change, honestly. I felt the winds of change happening there, and of course they did, because they ended up firing all of the designers and hiring someone called Raf Simons to design the entire brand. But I could see that happening, and Ralph Lauren had been, the company had been calling me for years saying, will you come work for us? Will you come interview with us? And when my boss retired, I thought, maybe this is the right time. This could be a good time for me to move somewhere else. So this time I answered the call and I went to see them and ended up working there. And I had a very similar job. So I was running global communications and media at Ralph Lauren. And it was a really interesting 2 years to be there, because that was the time they opened the Polo Bar, and also opened a huge flagship on Fifth Avenue for Polo. Did a 4D light show, fashion show in Central Park. We also, and I kind of helped spearhead this, we decided to do the men's fashion presentation in Milan at the Palazzo that Ralph Lauren has there, rather than in their New York studios they had done for many, many years. So it was a really interesting time to be there, but I think I'm probably most proud of working on that because I was running communications when this opened. And this was a kind of story that a friend of mine, Guy Trubet, wrote at the New York Times, and it was really kind of saying this is a cultural moment. This restaurant has opened and it is shifting New York City. We decided to open it by having 3 nights consecutively where we invited the toast of New York City into the restaurant. Ralph was there every night personally, and everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe who's in this room right now. It was just insane.
Yeah.
And it took off, and then of course he wrote this story, and it's been full ever since. Still the hardest reservation to get in New York City.
Yeah, they named Naomi Campbell, Rihanna, and others who were in the room. I often think about Studio 54 and the Steve Rubel, Ian Schrager method of starting with a bang. And I know that in the documentary they talk about sending cars for everyone from, Bianca Jagger to Liza Minnelli, and making sure that the first arrivals at the club were people that were, celebrities and icons. And
it's so true. And that was the strategy for here as well. I think that people, Page Six kept saying, oh my God, look who was here last night. And everyone's like, okay, that becomes, in New York City, I think that environment and decor is super important. Food is very important. But who's at that restaurant, sadly, is often kind of the most important reason why people want to go to dine. It's not that way anywhere else in the world, I think, but New York City is like, we like to kind of look over our shoulders and see someone fabulous.
Yeah. Like with the Maya Calvin's campaign and using the hashtag and having this user to celebrity level of participation, you were way ahead of the curve with the Polo Bar, because now all of these brands have, oh, hi, Oprah. All of these brands now have restaurants. So we were talking about Prada, Bulgari, Burberry, and Tiffany now has the Blue Box Cafe. Yeah. So that it's an interesting crossover, the intersection of fashion and food.
Yeah, I think Ralph was really a pioneer there. And he had opened, by the time we opened this, the New York City Polo Bar, he had already opened Chicago and Paris. So it was his third restaurant. But he definitely was a pioneer in the space. And
I think there's one opening in London in a few weeks. Yeah. And there's also Ralph's Coffee.
I think next year.
He opened the coffee stand also at Rockefeller Center. So next up, you started Carfrae Consulting. So tell us about going independent.
After 2 years at Ralph Lauren, I was a little tired, to be honest with you. It's like it was the kind of job where I worked from so early in the morning through to late at night, and it was really a lot, and I loved it. My favorite part of working there was working with him personally. That 1 hour per week when I sat in his office, made everything just so great. He is such an empathetic, trusting, caring person. He was always asking me, "How are you doing? How can I help you?" And but I think after 2 years, I figured that I was ready to look for something else, and I thought deeply about where that could be, what company I would want to work for, and honestly, at that point, especially, Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren were the two most important fashion brands, that were New York based. I didn't want to move elsewhere. And I thought, I don't know where else I am going to work. So I thought I may need to invent my own job. And inventing my own job meant creating my own company, my own consulting company, and choosing who I wanted to work with, as long as they wanted to work with me. So basically, my whole idea was to have a smaller number of clients than my competitors might normally have, but really the best in class with what they do. I tried doing one per industry so I could really have a diverse range of clients. And that's how I started.
So it's been about 9 years, is that right?
9.5 years, yeah.
Yeah, same for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I've been at Guildhall since 2016.
Should we do a 10th anniversary together?
We should. Let's do this. So let's take a look at the next image. So tell us about events and what role they play in communications, marketing, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the intersection of events and celebrity are, are very, very important. And I think that now for a brand to amplify itself, in a really kind of cohesive and really smart way, I think that events can generate a lot of organic press in a way that other things just are tougher to do. The days of, photographing dresses and having them in shopping pages is a little gone. I think now what brands really are looking for are like a big presence on social media and in, digital press. Mm-hmm. And I think that, when you are lucky enough to be able to have a major celebrity be at your event or to host it for you and utilize that, the global reach can be enormous from a press and social media perspective. So these are just some examples. That's Zoe Saldana at an RH event that we did in England. Gwyneth Paltrow, who actually it was an idea I had with Sarah Wettenhall, who is the owner of the Colony Hotel. We were talking about what her ideal partner would be, and she said, I would love to work with Goop. And with Gwyneth, I think they really epitomized the Colony Hotel and our consumer. So I called their CMO and said, how do you feel about doing a collaboration together? And so we made it happen, and Gwyneth designed one of the villas at the Colony Hotel, which was really, really great. And then the next one is Zimmerman. So they were my first client. I've been working with them for 9.5 years, and every year we do a big immersive 360 event somewhere in the world. This one was in Mykonos, but last year it was at St. Bart's, and previously we did Capri and Saint-Tropez, and it's a tough job, right? But we bring 80 to 90 people from around the world to a location for a 2-day event with a dinner and a lunch, and everyone has a blast. And we curate that list of VIPs, celebrities, influencers, editors, a really fun mix of people.
So this is Emma Roberts.
That's Emma Roberts, yeah.
By the way, Gwyneth and Emma both have roots out here on the
I
East
know.
End. And in fact, Gwyneth was on our stage this summer in All the President's Men.
I really wish I'd been there.
Yeah, that was a kind of mind-blowing experience. I don't think we've had that many celebrities all on our stage simultaneously.
Yeah, it looked really, really, really fabulous. And then the last one is, it's Naomi Watts. That was at the Hedges this past summer. We did an event with Amazon and Saks. They did their, Amazon bought a stake in Saks, and they did their first ever event together, and they chose us to run the event for them and at the Hedges Inn, which is also my client. So we did a really great event there. And my team and I worked across all of the celebrity relations for that, as well as the entire guest list for the event.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah Wettenhall recently joined the board of Guildhall.
I know.
We have a long history with the Hedges. It's where we put a lot of our artists, visiting artists. So let's move to the local, because you are a part-time resident of Amagansett, and you work with 2 women who are really standouts in the business community. As I mentioned, Sarah Wettenhall of the Colony Hotel in Palm Beach, and now the Hedges Inn in East Hampton, just down the street, and Joey Wolfer of Wolfer Estate Vineyards. So you've been working with both of them, you said, for about 4 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to you earlier that normally I like to have a little bit of space when I take on a new client, so I can really spend some time getting up to speed with them and really kind of concentrate on the strategy. But they both just happened to come to me at the same time, so I actually started exactly the same time with them both 4 years ago. And it couldn't have been a more perfect situation. I mean, they're both the most extraordinary visionaries. They're both, I would call them both Renaissance women in many ways. I mean, Joey is, she's one of the very few women who runs a successful wine brand. It's a very male-dominated industry. She has a fashion brand. She is an equestrian. She's just got so many strings to her bow. And Sarah is, has a fashion, PR, and marketing background, and decided to, go into the hotel business and has killed it. I mean, she really has such an instinct for it. Mm-hmm. And since we've been working together, they've got to know each other, and it's a really perfect situation when you trust someone and you really enjoy working with them. So I'm very fortunate to work with them both.
Fun fact: we have a coffee bar concession stand out front, and I recently asked Amy and Luis, who run it, what is our number 1 selling alcohol product, and it is, can anyone guess? You got it. Summer in a Bottle Rosé, yep. Which we sell a lot of at kids' programs. Just to note, any parent that has to sit through a recital.
Parents need it, right?
So moving to the local, you do events especially with both Wolfer and with the Hedges. You just had the harvest party, right, at Wolfer. Can you talk about mixing the local and the celebrity aspects of it?
Yeah. Well, this was a summer party we did at Wolfer, a dinner. That's Rachel Zoe there with Joey and I, and this is what it looked like. It was just the most special.
Beautiful.
And I think that, something that after doing this for a very, very long time, I think I have an instinct for putting together a good group of people. I think it's really important to really have a great balance of local people and bringing people in from other places, celebrities and VIPs and press from New York City, but also really thinking about who is important in the local community. And I think people now trust that if I invite them to something that it's going to be okay, and they're not going to they're not going to be bored or annoyed by anything. But it's really I think it's such a special part of the world, and to celebrate that and celebrate the landscape. This was right in the middle of the vineyard. It was under this beautiful tree with the lanterns. And then the Hedges Inn, which opened just this summer, actually Memorial Day. Or reopened, I should say, because last year it was a different entity. But this year it's been an incredible success. And Sarah and her husband, Andrea, and I worked really closely on what it would look like to open it. We started in January, and it opened at the end of May. And we talked a lot about doing the kind of Polo Bar situation of like, let's just get the right people in there right from the get-go and get them buzzing about it, getting the press talking about it, and then everyone else will follow. And it was, again, successful. The very first night we did there, it was, this picture here was actually taken there on the left with Gabby and Kelly. And then I think that it got to the point that they were getting 1,000 resi requests per day over the height of the summer.
Did you say 1,000?
Yeah.
Oh, so they weren't joking when I had a hard time getting a table there. Okay.
Why didn't you text me?
I got it. I went
Everybody else
over in
does.
person.
But yes, I think it was. I think that is the smart thing that Sarah has done is really think about making that hotel not just a hotspot for VIPs and celebrities who have a lot of money, but also opening it up to the community and making it a place where people can come and enjoy the historical nature of it. I mean, it is one of the very few historical inns of East Hampton Village, and she very early on wanted it to be a place that the town could come together. Hence, there's book signings and
They have a
trivia night.
Trivia night, yeah.
Trivia night. And they do kind of really fun things for the community there, which I think is really important.
So this pivot to Carfrae Consulting from working for these global brands, and now you're your own boss, you're the boss of everyone. Can you talk to the people in the audience maybe who have started their own business about being an entrepreneur, multi-hyphenate, and what that looks like?
Yeah, well, actually there are a lot of multi-hyphenates in here right now, funnily enough. I was thinking about this when I was coming. Kurt Giel, who is over here, he had a super successful career in banking, and is now both an artist and a real estate broker. So that's the perfect example of someone who has just pivoted and been very successful. Jenny Landy, who's over there, incredible production location agent for multiple fashion brands and different advertising campaigns, now a successful real estate broker. Susan Kaufman, who's over there, I have known for many years from my fashion career at Calvin Klein, and she was the editor-in-chief of People Style Watch, and now she publishes books on beautiful facades of homes taken on her iPhone. So, just like some examples of people who pivot and they don't wait to get another job exactly like they had before. They just actually think about what they could be doing that is different and keeping themselves happy and satisfied. I think that the younger generation now, there's going to be more and more of this. If I had to kind of have a crystal ball moment, I think a lot of younger people just aren't satisfied working with one employer for 20, 30 years anymore. They want to have multiple jobs, multiple interests. They want to have 3 jobs and not one. So I think that is something that I see happening a lot more regularly going forward.
Interestingly, when I was preparing to speak with you, I listened to a very old interview with David Ogilvy. I know a totally different, personality, but he said that he really regretted moving from creative to management because he no longer got to do what he loved. And what he advised is the most peculiar thing, which was that you should constantly move people back and forth, back to the creative side and then up to the management side to keep their interest and energy and the evolution going. So, but now you are on both sides because you're small enough to be nimble.
Well, I will say that's exactly right, what he said. I think that's really smart. I will say that when I was working in corporate America at both Calvin and at Ralph, I spent a lot of time with the finance department, with the HR department, doing reviews, working on budgets, and I really felt like it took away from doing the creative part of the job, which is what I love. So when I started my business, I really wanted to focus on doing what I love best, which is to be creative, which is to create really, wonderful strategies for my clients with them, and you have the liberty of doing that when you have a small business. I mean, there is definitely back of house you need to do, but it's I have 8 employees, not 80, which was the case previously.
So you recommend it?
Yes.
Everyone quit your corporate job.
Just do it.
Well, we'll end it there. I want to thank Malcolm Carfrae for being our first astronaut in the Innovators Talk Show. We have a reception outside. I don't want you to forget to consider becoming a community pillar if you are not already. And also, Amy Kerwin in the back is going to be sending out an email tomorrow after this event, and we would love to know who or what you'd like to see next on the talk show. So the suggestion box is open. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here.
Thank you. See you for drinks.